Welcome to Envisioned Broadcasting Radio, your station for empowerment, music, and talk radio. EB Radio presents Empower Hour with Jaresha. A show that shares the stories behind the journeys of leaders, influencers, and motivators. The Empower Hour with Jaresha begins now.
Good evening, amazing people. Welcome back to Empower Hour with Jaresha. I am your host, Jaresha Moore Smith, and it's another amazing Wednesday. You know, we love Wednesdays here on the Empower Hour with Jaresha show. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm so happy that you're tuning in to the show this evening. I want you to know that I believe you have the power to be great, do great, and have great. You just have to be willing to unleash your greatness and take action. So on this show, I speak with leaders, motivators, and influencers who want to share their stories and journeys to empower the world for growth and success. And so recently we celebrated our 100th episode. It was really exciting. I shared some amazing insights from the journey over the last 100 episodes. And if you missed that episode, please go back and listen, download, and subscribe to the podcast. So tonight, we're really just going to dive in because the thing that I want to talk about tonight is something that this topic is one that we all find ourselves kind of stuck in sometimes and fighting and dealing with. And so it is that dreaded P word, the procrastination. And so tonight I simply just want to share some insights and certainly some tips for how we can eliminate procrastination. And so let's just jump right in, right? So I know that I've had some struggles with procrastination, and I'm sure you all have as well, given just life, right? Life happens, and because of that, we have a tendency to delay and postpone and really avoid doing tasks that we need to be doing. I feel like we all are guilty of procrastination at some point in our lives. You know, we have a tendency to put off those unpleasant tasks from time to time. And tonight, I really want to dive into how procrastination can really affect us. And so, for some of us, we may just, oh yeah, we know that we procrastinated. For others, it could really be a sign of chronic procrastination. That is such a thing, right? It's such a thing because of the fact that when we think about just chronic procrastination, it really extends to matters of our health and self-improvement. And so we know that the outcome of procrastination, and it's certainly chronic procrastination, is not a good thing. So procrastination, right? Let's really look at common reasons why we have a tendency to procrastinate. And then how we can get the job done, because ultimately that's what we want. We want to be able to get things done. I absolutely come from, I shouldn't say come from, but really love being able to have the list and being able to check off lists. And I was going to say come from the old school, but I don't feel like it's an old school thing. I definitely feel like it's an old school new thing. It's just one of those things that, if you love to have lists and have post-its and all of that, then, you're my kind of girl, my kind of guy, honestly, because that's exactly what I do and what I utilize from a day to day. But interesting enough that when we think about procrastination, according to my research, 20% of the population is considered to, truly be chronic procrastinators. Isn't that interesting? 20%. So chronic procrastination often, suffers from, so those that are chronic procrastinators, I should say, often suffer from like broken marriages and lost jobs and financial disarray and self-esteem issues and deflated dreams. And those are really serious issues, right? When we delay and when we put off tasks that we have been dreading, it may seem harmless, But it can, in fact, lead to several different consequences. With anything that I do, I love looking at it from a, spiritual, like a biblical point of view or biblical spiritual side of things. And, some of us are very familiar with James 4:17 that says, don't mince words. It definitely doesn't mince words. It said, so for one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, it is a sin. That right there is so powerful. Procrastination is not honoring our God given time. To me, that is spiritual danger. So to put off what we're here on this earth to do truly is to disobey God. It's something because when you look at it from that perspective, it really, you know, honestly, it puts a lot of things in perspective for the things that you need to be doing that we're not focused on doing, that we're dreading, that we're putting those things off. And we know there are many signs of procrastination, so, but I'm going to share with you just, a few of those telltale signs that you may be a chronic procrastinator or maybe someone that may be a chronic procrastinator. And some of the signs to kind of look for is you feel like you're lost without a roadmap. You have a difficulty coping with change and transition. Those that are chronic procrastinators tend to be chronically late. So it's not, sometimes people like to say, oh, they're fashionably late. No, you're chronically late. And then, of course, your to do list is never ending. And so, this to do list is not that, to do list that we have a tendency to accumulate. It is the to do list that you have something on your list that just continues to be on that list, and you just keep adding things, and, you're making excuses and finding other things to do besides doing the things that you need to be doing. And then you focus on non essential work instead of what needs to be done. And so that kind of plays in line exactly with what I just said. We sometimes have a tendency to, do other things when we know we need to be doing those things. So we, get boggled down by the busyness, the busy work, right? Not the things that's going to be productive. And so when we think about overcoming procrastination, it can be especially challenging because we all have many different reasons for doing it. Many different reasons. So some of us are plagued with perfectionism, and this one for me is just, it rings all so just near and dear to my life, my journey. It's that fear of making mistakes, right? It can truly cause people to put off all kinds of different tasks and obligations for the day. Perfectionism is serious, okay? So people may think, oh, it may seem like it's a good quality. However, it can be very, very detrimental to us. Perfectionism is often confused with having high standards. However, we got to think about those standards. Those standards are truly unrealistic. Procrastination occurs as a result of thinking that such a standard would never be achieved, right? And like I said, this whole procrastination thing and perfectionism, that was a struggle that I experienced on my own journey. One of the other things that we need to think about too when we think about procrastination is the fear. Fear. Fear is a deeply rooted cause of procrastination. So many of us have the fear of failure. You know, that fear, when we think about the fear of failure, it can be very crippling for us. So for many of us, the idea of failure can be crippling, it can be devastating. And this stems from the view of failure as a final result than as a stepping stone. So I believe we are supposed to fail forward. And failure it's seen as a permanent stain, as on someone's reputation, and it can cause self-esteem issues, because the fact that we're looking at, oh, I completely failed at this, or even thinking about things that we failed at in the past and saying, okay, I don't want to do this because what if I fail? That's a lot of pressure, right? It's a lot of pressure. But on the flip side, many procrastinators are fearful of success. Now, if you are a procrastinator, if you ever procrastinated, can you relate to this? Success can also create lots and lots of pressure on us, right? We all have the pressure to want to achieve more, to be successful. But the idea of people demanding more of you after you've achieved something too can cause many to sabotage that potential success. Now, for me, when I think about just the fear of success and how we all go through pressures of life, and if you are an entrepreneur and you understand that there's this pressure that you put on yourself, as well as pressure that maybe you feel from having a family to take care of and having kids to, provide for, and so you want to succeed. You want to succeed, but often sometimes when we have so many things on our plates and we have that fear of failure, it can stop us from really doing the things that we need to be focused on. And we're focused on all the wrong things, right? So fear is truly a deeply ingrained emotion, and it can cause us to procrastinate for many different reasons. Many, many different reasons. And for most of us, and I'm sure I'm not alone on this in my own journey, when we think about procrastination, there tends to be a lack of motivation. Motivation is related to the expectation. So, procrastinators often think they must be fully motivated to begin a task. Now, I know that I have felt like this on my own journey, and you know how it feels when there are things that you need to do. There are emails that you need to send out. There are phone calls that you need to make. There are tasks that you need to be doing. And yet, something that, maybe life is happening. Maybe things are going on within your life and you're just not motivated. But that does not mean don't even begin. See, we have a tendency to feel like we must be fully motivated. We must be so energetic and ready and just boom to even begin a task. So many of us don't do anything. Now, this can be unrealistic in so many cases because progress leads to motivation, which cannot be seen until a project is underway. So maybe, just maybe, once you start whatever that project is, maybe you will begin to feel the motivation as you see it may not be as bad as you thought it was, as you jump into and see the light at the end of the tunnel. And, a lot of times we have those emotions that are attached to why we're procrastinating on something. And so instead of putting that thing off, and waiting to be motivated, we have to jump in. Start that task. Progress leads to motivation. Start that task. And then many of us, just have a tendency to just not be interested. Now, if if this has ever been, you when it comes down to procrastinating, just the lack of interest, like I don't even want to do it. I think that this is a fine line between motivation and having that lack. But, we're all guilty of delaying or avoiding tasks that we find unappealing. It's just, why do it's that whole concept, or, you asking yourself, well, I really don't understand why I even need to do this, but if it's something that needs to be done, you need to just do it, right? Because if everyone put off, if everyone put off the things they didn't want to do, nothing would ever get accomplished. nothing would ever get accomplished. Yes, there are so many tasks that we have throughout the day that we don't want to do. But guess what? We have to get it done. So, for me, when I think about this task or the task that I really don't particularly care about doing, most of us is probably like paperwork. So, as an entrepreneur, when you think, even when you start the process of, working with the state and completing the paperwork to actually set up your business, there's a lot of paperwork that goes into play. There is a lot of work, tasks that we have to do when you are wearing many hats as an entrepreneur that you don't want to do. But guess what? If you don't do it, who's going to do it? So you can't continue to put off the things that you don't want to do. Because, like I said before, you keep putting it off and it will never get done. Things won't get done. We just have to suck it up. It's that we have to suck it up. And, whether we complain and feel some kind of way about whatever it is we need to get done, guess what? It still has to be done. We still have to be done. It still has to be done. So one of the biggest things that often plays in line with us being procrastinators is all of the distractions that life brings us from a day to day. Distractions, distractions, distractions. We are faced with many, many, many distractions throughout the day. From the time we wake up, when we're grabbing that cell phone to scroll through social media. And I'll tell you, this is something that I do not do. I do not recommend. The first thing that you do in the morning should not be to reach for your phone. But that's another show, another day, another topic. But, when we think about from emails to social media to these games that we have access to, at our fingertips, our smartphones, the internet, everything. And again, I have to go back to social media because many of us are on social media from the time we get up with scrolling through, and then literally you turn around and 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you've lost that time. One thing I will say is that time is so precious, and I really wish we all would value the time that we have every single day. Once we, once we start valuing that and really looking at the things that is distracting us and keeping us from getting things done, you will see that you will be able to get much more, so much more done. You'll be able to get so many other things done just by saying, you know what, I'm not going to pick up my cell phone. I'm not going to allow this distraction. I'm going to turn off notifications. I'm going to do whatever I need to do in order to keep me from being distracted so that I can get my task done. So I can get those most important things done that you have on your list for the day. And so one of the things that, and I'm going to mention this here in a little bit when I share some tips, but these distractions, they're serious. And not only are they affecting us as adults, but they're affecting our children as well. So everything is a distraction. Everything is a distraction. But ultimately, when we think about being a procrastinator and procrastinating in our lives, we have to really change our mindset. So if you have a tendency to procrastinate and it's related to, being a perfectionist, you may need to really consider your mindset. That fear of making mistakes is associated with having a fixed mindset. And I think that no one else that, I've seen, well, there's so many different books and authors and everything out there and experts that speak on this, but there is one that really comes to mind, and that is Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. That's a really great book. I would recommend getting it, reading it, pulling out some key nuggets. But in her work, she explains that those with a fixed mindset believe that their abilities are set in stone. So they focus only on their current intelligence or talents, thinking more cannot be developed. This mindset can truly hinder one's ability to grow, learn, and make positive changes. We have to change our mindset. So if when I started the beginning of the show and I said, if you were a procrastinator, and I feel like we all have procrastinated at some point in our lives, but some of us actually utilize that in just in saying, okay, well, I'm a procrastinator, therefore I'm not going to continue to work on these tasks, or we let that be the reason. I think that's what I'm looking for. We let that be the reason why we don't move forward. It's like, okay, I'm a procrastinator, and you identify as a procrastinator, and so all of a sudden that now becomes a part of who you are. I really feel like you have to be willing to change that mindset and change that narrative for your life and say, you know what, I used to be a procrastinator, but I am no longer on the procrastination and procrastinating journey. It's all about one, changing your mindset and knowing where you are and not staying there, but having the ability to move forward. And I truly feel like that is all about changing our mindset and being able to face the fears that we have that could stop us from moving forward. Whether you fear a negative outcome, or maybe you fear failure, there are some questions that each and every one of us can ask ourselves the next time we feel procrastination setting in. And I'm going to give you those questions. So as I always say, I hope you have your notebook and your pen, paper, something that you can jot down some notes, or even if you need to go back and listen and take notes. But these are really great questions, especially if you have identified yourself as one that tends to procrastinate. So one of the questions is, what am I afraid of? And I'm going to go through these questions, fairly quickly. So what am I afraid of? What is the worst possible consequence that could happen? What could happen if I ignore the situation? Ugh, this is my favorite. Why am I putting this off? Often, if we just ask ourselves these questions, it will help us in really getting focused and saying, you know what, I'm not putting this off any longer. But what will I gain in the long run by putting this off? Now, that's a really great question to ask yourself. So, whatever that thing is that you have been putting off, what truly are you gaining by not doing it? And then also, are you trying to convince yourself of something that is not true? Now, I mentioned that most of us have emotions that's attached to many of the different tasks that we don't want to do. And that's why we delay, delay, delay. But think about this as well. Are you scared of the process or the result? And can you handle the outcome? Are you trying to protect yourself from a certain outcome? And then, last but not least, are you actually scared, or was it that you were just told that it was scary? Skinny Brew is an instant French roast coffee that helps burn fat and fires up brain function. You'll also experience more energy than ever before with 5 plant-based sources of caffeine that combine for a powerful brew with tons of perk. Skinny Brew is fat burning coffee blend that provides great taste. That's a fat burner, all day energizer, brain enhancer, hunger killer, and it is truly a game changer. To order yours today, visit www.jareshamoore.com. So often, a lot of things that we procrastinate on, again, it goes back to those emotions that, in the emotions in the narrative that we're telling ourselves, whether you're telling it, whether it's your narrative or it's a narrative that you've listened to from somebody else. Regardless of whatever that is, you have to be willing to face those fears Face whatever it is that is stopping you from doing what you need to do. And again, when we think about this and look at it from a spiritual side of things, I really, we know that the Bible talks a lot about fear and really makes it clear that fear is not of God. So think about fear as something to defeat with prayer and reflection on scripture. And here's one verse to really reflect upon. And it's found in 2 Timothy 1:7. For God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, but rather of power and love and self control. Now, that again is so powerful because when we think about that, it's so powerful. It's so powerful when we think about fear, the fears that we have in our lives that may be stopping us from doing the things that we know that we need to be doing. So, you know that each of us, each and every one of us has this and growing to do list. And one thing that I really love that I mention is utilizing lists. So utilizing post-it notes, but I am a list person. I am a list person. Absolutely. But one of the things too, when being a list person and listing things out, we have to add specific deadlines to each of those tasks. So when you think about the tasks that you have and so once you've added those deadlines of completing them and then arrange those tasks in an order that will help to manage your workload. It is so helpful. It is so helpful to work in in like the time. So I utilize time blocking, but it's so helpful to work when you know that you have timelines and deadlines and you have things added to your actual list and your tasks. And so you may have that master to-do list and then you break it up into a weekly or daily list so that you know where your deadlines are. Having those specific deadlines will help you build a sense of momentum and build your confidence as you complete each of those tasks. And so when we think about completing each of those tasks, we have to remember that we have to take baby steps. Take baby steps, baby steps. If you're wanting to get things done and if you're not writing things down, I would highly encourage you to write things down. But many of us have, we have small projects, we have big projects, those large and daunting projects. And often we become so overwhelmed and we feel defeated before we even begin. Break down those tough jobs into bite sized portions to make sure that you can actually get them done. So, this could look like if you have some kind of party or something, maybe you have a dinner party or something that you're looking to plan. What do you need to do first? Perhaps you need to set a date and then make a guest list, and then you need to invite people. Then you have to decide on the menu, and you keep working in small tasks, and then you check them off. It's nothing like being able to check off, right? I love being able to mark off tasks that's on my list. One of the tools that I utilize is I'm all about project management tools, and so I utilize a couple of different tools. One being ClickUp. ClickUp is my all-time favorite tool that I'm utilizing to help me manage my life and business. For those that follow me know that I used to use Trello. I still use it, but not as I still use it for some things, but pretty much everything with all my business, personal, I'm transitioning everything from Trello to ClickUp. And then also Todoist. Like I will never stop using Todoist because it's just an easy place for me to plug in all of the things that I need to do on my Todoist app. So I absolutely love those tools, and I share because those are tools that help you get things done, right? As I shared, those are tools that's going to help us get things done. And when it comes to distractions, as I shared before, the smartphones are to blame for the distractions, at least most of them. Sometimes we, have a tendency to watch Netflix and binge watch things instead of getting things done like we need to. But if distractions are the cause of your procrastination, it is so crucial to remove any temptation and only think about the task at hand. So I'm going to give you some tips for removing distractions, and I really hope that you utilize this because they will definitely help you in getting things done and really moving from being a procrastinator to being a go-getter and knocking out the things on your list. Number one tip is removing your notifications. Now this one's a little tough. It's tough to, stop the notifications from Facebook, from Instagram, from from all your social medias. I know that one's tough. It really is. But I promise you, you will thank me because even the emails, when you're working and then all of a sudden you see a notification that pops up, whatever you're working on, all of a sudden, you're just putting to the side and you're focused on that notification. So if you remove that notification, then you won't even see it and you won't even worry about what's happening on Facebook, what's happening on Instagram, Twitter, whatever social media, you're generally on. And then also, we have to be willing to delete those games and the apps on our smartphone. So often we get lost in like the Candy Crushes and some of these other games that we have on our phones that really are a temptation to not get things done. One of the things I would also suggest is if you're having a hard time with that, then move your cell phone away from your work wherever you're working. Completely just move the cell phone. Also utilize, there are different tools that you can download on your computer that will help you in staying focused. I want to say, I can't think of the one, but I think Toggle is one of them that truly helps you in not like visiting different sites and really help you with focus and also keeps track of what you're spending your time on. Those are very helpful. I know that with my email, there is an activity, so it provides insights and shares how much, what tasks that I've been working on, some of the different categories of things that I've been working on. And so it allows me to be able to see how much time I'm spending on particular, categories that truly is helpful as I'm looking at how I'm spending my day and making sure I'm not being distracted. And so one of the things too is, sometimes we just have to be willing to disconnect from, Netflix, disconnect from any and everything that's going to be a distraction to us for getting things done. So for me, I am really trying to develop this habit to where I don't necessarily watch TV or anything until the weekends. Now I know for some of us this is a challenge, but I think that, I am definitely up for that challenge. And I would encourage you to even put challenges in your own life so that you can start being more focused on the things that you need to get done and stop procrastinating. So, in case some of you are like myself and we really love to have that biblical inspiration, here are a couple of verses to kind of keep at hand when you're thinking about being distracted and just needing to stay focused. Proverbs 4:25 says, "Let your eyes look straight ahead and your gaze be focused forward." And then Ephesians 5:15 through 16, "Watch carefully then how you live, not as foolish persons, but as wise, making the most of the opportunity because the days are evil." We need to be focused on the things that we need to be focused on, right? And not allowing things to be distractions to us. And we know the cell phone is the absolute worst. I can't tell you how many times, we have either been at dinner and even at our own dinner table and, cell phones come to the table and I'm like, and I've been guilty of bringing cell phone to the table as well. And we have to get in the habit of removing that distraction, just being present. And being present is not being present on social media, scrolling through Facebook and, looking at some of the feeds and all of that. Being present is being present. And that means being present in your work, being present in your to do list, being present in your purpose and focusing on the things that you know you need to be doing and not those other things. Now, I'm not going to say that, Netflix and some of the other things that we have a tendency to do, I'm not going to say that we should cut that out completely, but there's a time. Set a time. Maybe it's, oh, I'm going to get XYZ done today, and then I'm going to spend 30 minutes after later on in the evening watching my favorite show. Set it as an incentive for yourself versus just getting lost in one episode, two episodes, and now you've binge watched and haven't gotten anything done that you needed to get done for that day. And then one of the things too that I would highly recommend and suggest, and I've actually talked about this on another one of the shows, is we have to be willing to tackle that hard stuff first. And so that is eating that frog. Now, I've talked about eating the frog and how it's so important to, if we have to eat a frog, we should eat a frog first thing in the morning. And that is such a great book as well. But one thing to think about is most productive people would completely agree with this. To get ahead, start your toughest task first. Now, when you've completed the biggest part of your workday first, then this will give you a serious confidence boost. Okay, once you know you have completed the hard task, and a lot of times we have those emotions that's attached to us not completing that. But once you have completed that task first, it's nothing like the feeling of feeling productive that's going to carry you into the next task. And having the hardest job complete, that just allows your day to flow. And I really feel like the rest of your day and your work will flow just super easy after. And then also, so one of the things that we can think about as we're having those tasks that we need to complete, when you're faced with the task that you really, really don't want to do, think of only doing it for like 120 seconds. And if you think about that 2 minute rule, it becomes manageable. So remember, you can do anything for a limited time, no matter how tough the work is. It's the idea of facing it head on for only 2 minutes. It can truly relieve a ton of pressure. Chances are you're just getting started. And if you think about it, you need to keep you going. And so tell yourself, I'm only going to work for 2 minutes. I only have to work for 2 minutes, and in 2 minute increments. And think about that. You're probably more likely to actually dive in when you don't look at it like, oh, I'm going to spend 2 hours on this task, but take it in small increments. And then, I wouldn't be a coach if I didn't, mention accountability and how accountability is so important. And accountability is important in everything that we do, but it's so important to hold yourself accountable. Accountability can be a significant motivator, or it can be a demotivator when it's lacking. So creating the to-do list is enough for some people to hold themselves accountable. So checking your list throughout the day to make sure you're completing the necessary task, and making sure that you're not doing unnecessary things. So that's going back to the distractions that we have a tendency to do. And then, when we think about accountability as well, we have to think about how someone else holding us accountable is equally just as important too when we are procrastinators that have a tendency to procrastinate. So, and here's how you really do that. So you take the task that you have and you've been procrastinating on, and you break it into the small pieces and set deadlines for each of the steps that you have. And then the next thing you would do is let someone know your plan, and then ask him or her to check on you and your progress. It could be a parent, a neighbor, a spouse, partner, one of your, best friends, a work buddy. It can be anyone. This can be even more effective if you are working with someone who's also trying to conquer procrastination. So you actually become like accountable to each other. And then perhaps you can work with someone who you're close with. So that can be a friend, that can be someone that maybe that's a part of a networking group. It helps so much to be held accountable and to have accountability partner. Accountability increases your desire to accomplish the task that you have at hand. And ultimately, when we procrastinate, we have to be willing to get rid of the excuses. So I know that I have been guilty of this, and I'm sure so many of us can say that this is one of the number one things that we have a tendency to do is create all kinds of excuses. Again, it goes back to the narrative that we're going to tell ourselves. And as I share, we are all prone to procrastination, but it's up to you to determine whether your procrastination habits are getting in the way of accomplishing your goals or even harming your health. We come up with all kinds of creative reasons why today isn't the right time to start, or isn't the right time to finish, or I'm too busy, I'm too stressed, it's too risky, it's too uncertain, I'm too inexperienced. And it's just, the list goes on and on and on and on, right? And some, once in a while, some of those reasons may, are valid, but more often than not, they're just excuses. And so we have to call it what it is. An excuse is an excuse is an excuse, right? So we have to take time to really examine those excuses. Ask yourself if it's truly valid, or if there's a deeper reason for putting off doing something, like fear, or whatever that thing may be. Once you have identified the why behind your procrastination, you can find the right solution to get you going again. So, here's what I want you to do. And I'm going to invite each and every one of you that is listening right now to, if you have paper, if you don't, then, write it down. You just need to write it down. Think about, think about one task that you have been putting off. And now I want to know, what is your plan for getting it started? So on your paper right now, whatever that task is, something that you have been putting off. And I'll tell you, for myself, I have been putting off cleaning out, completely decluttering and cleaning out my garage. And so this task is one that I have broken down into a plan and steps. And, again, put it out there. Put it out there. Tell someone, someone that that's going to be able to hold you accountable, and then start making plans to get things done. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm just going to take a whole day and clean out the garage. You can break it down into sections. You can break it down and say, okay, I'm going to spend 30 minutes on Thursday. And then when Thursday comes, you set that timer for 30 minutes, get it done, and then make sure you have a plan to complete it, or when is the next time you're going to work on that task. So it really just depends on whatever the task is, but whatever that thing is that you have been putting it off, write it down and now begin to take action on it. Ultimately, we all want to accomplish more. We want to achieve more, and procrastination can be confused with laziness. But as you now know, being lazy has nothing to do with it. Well, at least most of the time. At the fundamental core, we procrastinate when we allow the emotions to influence our motivations. So stop overthinking how much needs to be done and simply start doing it. Allow yourself to take breaks if needed, and keep in mind why task X, Y, and Z needs to be completed to accomplish your goals. Absolutely. We have to keep those things in mind. This procrastination thing is so serious, and I feel like we're always and constantly looking for ways to eliminate procrastination. But ultimately, it all comes back to you. It all comes back to you, and you being able to break away from procrastination so that you can start accomplishing your goals and enjoying the success that you absolutely deserve. Now, I truly love coming on the show and sharing nuggets, wisdom with you all because I know that we are all struggling with, certain things, and it's just a struggle, and life happens, it gets in the way. And so that is so amazing, just in knowing that this thing such as procrastination is not something that you have to continue doing. It's something that you get to say, I am gonna make a choice that, although I have been a procrastinator in the past, I've had a tendency to procrastinate on XYZ, I am going to stand today and say, you know what, I will no longer be a procrastinator. I will begin to get my life in order. I will begin to work on the things that I know I need to be doing, whether it's for, whether it's for personal, whether it's for business, or both. But ultimately, you have to make a choice. And I believe that with you listening to today's show, you have made that choice. I would encourage you to keep going. Okay, you got this. Keep going. Take the step. Write down the task. Certainly, if you need any tools, if you need resources, we are definitely here to share and to help as well. So please, if you're looking for any kind of resources, please email info@empoweronpurpose.com. And like always, I thank you all so much for tuning in to Empower Out with Jaresha. If you are interested in starting your own show, or maybe you want to be a guest on the show to share your amazing story and journey to equip, encourage, and empower others for growth and success, please visit www.envisionbroadcasting.com to learn more. Please tune in next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you will hear another amazing story and journey from another leader, influencer, and motivator. Until next time, stay safe and be blessed.
Thank you for listening to the Empower Hour with Jaresha, where Jaresha speaks with leaders, influencers, and motivators who share their journey in personal and professional growth, empowerment tips, lessons learned, and keys of success that will empower you to your best self. Follow Jaresha on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Jaresha Moore, and visit www.empoweronpurpose.com. Remember to be intentional and be empowered, and have a great day on purpose.